Let's talk about one of the scariest videos out on the internet. Today we're talking about the Ronnie McNut video where a man named Ronnie goes live on Facebook and then offs himself, so trigger warning.
Today we're looking at crazy TikToks that will make you rethink everything.
On Elon Musk, do you plan to speak to him on the phone anytime soon?
I haven't really thought about it, actually. I would imagine he wants to speak to me. I would think so.
Thank you to all the channel members for support. Let's try to get 3,000 likes this video. It says around 70% of you guys are not subscribed, so make sure to subscribe. We're on our road to 100K. Let's go.
Elon Musk, do you plan to speak to him on the phone anytime soon?
I haven't really thought about it, actually. I would imagine he wants to speak to me. I would think so. If I were him, I'd want to speak to me, and maybe he's already called. You'd have to ask him whether or not he's already called. But I'd have no problem with it.
If he calls you, you'd have to speak to him?
Well, I don't want to say that, but I would imagine he'd want to talk to me.
To me, that kind of looked like a statue compared to like a real alien. I guess that's their representation of the flat earth theory.
Top 10 highest paying jobs in the US for 2025 that don't need a college degree. Starting with number 10, we got dental hygienist at $81,000. You do need an associate's degree and a license though. Number 9, electrical power line installer at $82,000. And you only need a high school diploma keeping the lights on. Number 8, transit bus driver at $83,000. Just a high school diploma and a CDL license. Driving buses like a champ. Number 7, radiation therapist at $89,000. But you do need an associate's degree in clinical experience. Number 6, and this is not talked about much, police supervisor at $96,000, high school diploma and cop experience. Number 5, logistics manager at $98,000, high school diploma and some logistics skills, moving goods like a pro. Number 4, wind turbine technician at $99,000. But you do need to be technically sharp, high school diploma, and a certificate. Number 3, elevator installer at $100,000. And all you need is a high school diploma, hitting 6 figures. Number 2, information security analyst at $112,000. This field's projected to grow by 32% this decade. Just a diploma and certs. Number 1, and I know you guys aren't expecting this, because it's not entrepreneurship, it's commercial pilot at $148,000.
Photos you've taken inside your house can now be located. Check this out. We're gonna start with this random bed frame in San Francisco. Watch this. First, I'm gonna go to Geospy, and I'm gonna try to upload that same image. And then we're gonna search. Now I'm gonna wait. And while I'm waiting, it's searching through the huge database looking for interior photos. Here's the original photo, and here's another angle from that room, and another angle with the same address. Wild. This tool will only be used for suspects in child crime related cases, but any other service could come out in the future with the same thing, so be careful what you post and stay safe.
Family, what's going on? When someone appears in your dreams, this is what it means. So dreams don't care about language or country. They all come to us wrapped in mystery and meaning. Now, hear me out. It's easy to think that dreaming about someone is about them. But more often than not, chosen ones, it's about you. That face in your sleep, it might not be there to talk about them at all. It might be your heart's way. It might be the universe's, God's, source's way of holding up a mirror to your soul. Maybe that friend you dreamed of carries a strength you wish you had. Maybe they walk with a grace that your spirit longs to wear. And dreams often whispers what we're too distracted to notice while we're awake. And sometimes it's simple. You've been thinking about them, haven't you? And maybe not out loud, and maybe not even consciously, but way down in the basement of your mind, fam, something stirred. Something emotional and something raw, and that's the soil where dreams like to grow. So if your heart been aching, don't be surprised when someone who once hurt you shows up in an uninvited dream. And it's not because they belong in your present, but because your pain called their name. And then there are the dream visitors that barely belong to your story. So this could be someone you met once, a voice from the past, a stranger from the checkout line. It feels random, like static from the radio. But even those flashes of memory can carry meaning, fam. Sometimes God, the universe, source, uses something simple to whisper something sacred. Maybe they carry a message, a symbol, a reflection of your own longing. And though science may say they miss you, and maybe, just maybe, it's your soul processing a moment that mattered more than you thought. Now let's talk about those recurring dreams. The ones that come again and again like waves that won't stop at the shore. You keep dreaming about someone and start to wonder, am I obsessed? Do not be too quick to judge your heart, family. A wise man once said, the mind is just like a computer. It won't stop running the same code until you give it something new. Woo! And that face in your dream may not be about love or longing. It might be a signal, a signpost, a place in your life that still needs peace, still needs healing. And oh, those dreams are about your coworkers? You might be laughing now, but guess what, fam? You see them all day and now they followed you into their sleep. That is no accident. Whether you want to call it respect or resentment, your spirit is trying to tell you something, fam. Maybe them dreams you're having about them, it's not about them at all. Maybe it's about your purpose, your calling, your joy, or even your frustration. Don't ignore it and don't brush it off, because the dreams we often don't understand often carries the truth we need the most. Follow me for more updates.
This is breaking news. Scientists may have been looking for consciousness in the wrong parts of our brain. And if that's true, this has huge implications for coma patients who might just be mislabeled as being unconscious. So here's the story behind the longest and the biggest consciousness study ever done in history. After a long 7 years and 256 participants later, this new study pitted the top two leading theories of consciousness against each other. One theory says that consciousness comes from your prefrontal cortex, and this part of the brain has been long considered the consciousness hub. And the other theory argues that consciousness comes from integration of the sensory areas in the back of your brain. So who won this boxing match? As a shock to scientists, the clearest evidence for consciousness did not come from the front of the brain as we were taught in school, but actually came from the back of the brain, which is the area of the brain where we process sound, images, and sensations. Objects like faces, letters, and their orientation could only be decoded in the back of the brain, whereas the front of the brain did not light up at all. So this landmark study shreds your biology textbooks and might explain why some comatose patients might still be aware. Although at the end, neither theory came on top, this study shows that consciousness doesn't come from the thinking front part of our brain, but rather the sensing back part of our brain. It's not about intelligence, it's about awareness.
Breaking news from the New York Times. They reported today that YouTube is changing their content moderation policies, buckling under the pressure of Trump administration. Another big media company buckles. First, we had X with their propaganda and community notes instead of fact-checking. Then we saw Facebook pressured into doing the same thing. And now YouTube. Now, YouTube didn't come out and announce the policy, but an investigative report by the New York Times got a hold of YouTube's training materials. I'll outline some of the new content moderation policies that will allow hate speech and misinformation to appear on the site as long as the video has a public interest aspect. The first key change is that the offending aspect of the video used to be capped at 25%. In other words, if the content moderator judged that 25% of the video was dealing with misinformation or the kind of speech not permitted on Facebook, that it would be disallowed. That number has changed, and the advice given or rather the instructions given to content moderators, is now 50%. Number two, content moderators were told not to pull down videos with hate speech or misinformation if they revolve around public interest discussions. The New York Times speculates that since YouTube is making more revenue from carrying podcasts, that they need to allow this marketplace of disinformation and misinformation to exist more freely. Here are a couple examples of now videos that are allowed. A video claiming that COVID vaccines alter your genetics. We know it's not true, but it is permitted to say this on YouTube. Also permitted, videos with transphobic slurs. The example shows a longer public discussion of governmental issues that includes one transphobic slur. Because of the length of the video and the relatively shorter amount of time the slur takes up, the video was permitted. Finally, an example of a video that would have been deemed too violent in its rhetoric before has a person talking about a guillotining of a politician made to be positioned so that they could see the blade falling. This video would not have been permitted in the past, but now is permitted because it was, quote, seen as not feasible and part of a political discussion.
Okay, I guess so. YouTube is becoming more free speech. I mean, I guess it could be both sides of bad and a good thing, but at the same time, I guess people just do what they want. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments.
Talk about one of the scariest videos out on the internet. Today we're talking about the Ronnie McNut video, where a man named Ronnie goes live on Facebook and then offs himself, so trigger warning. This is Ronnie McNut. He was a 33-year-old Army vet from New Albany, Mississippi. On August 31st of 2020, Ronnie goes live on Facebook. His best friend Joshua said he used these live streams as a form of therapy, but this live stream seemed different as Ronnie appeared, quote, heavily inebriated and despondent. Joshua says he tried to intervene multiple times and was hoping that Facebook would just cut the live stream altogether, and he also sought police intervention as well. Throughout this live stream, his phone is ringing and ringing and ringing. His last call he ever took was from his ex-girlfriend. They get into a brief little argument. Then he looks at the camera and says, hey guys, I guess that's it. Pulls out a rifle, sticks it under his chin, and pulls the trigger. About a second before he did this, he was receiving a phone call from his mom. Multiple viewers watch as this happens, and then Ronnie just slumps over. I've read that his face appeared to be like one of the Demogorgons from Stranger Things. The New Albany Police Department were actually on scene, but they didn't intervene until after Ronnie did this to himself. Before going live, Ronnie made one final post to Facebook that read, someone in your life needs to hear that they mattered, that they are loved, that they have a future. Be the one to tell them.
Trump warned of severe consequences for Elon if he takes this unacceptable step that will officially cross the red line. Trump and Elon have been very publicly throwing insults at each other over the past few days as their relationship rapidly unraveled. Both men have made a spectacle in the media, but the difference is that by insulting Trump, Elon has shown blatant disrespect for the office of the President of the United States. However, Trump has not retaliated with any substantial consequences. That is until he conducted an interview with NBC, where he declared that first, the relationship with Elon is irreparably broken and dismissed any hopes of reconciliation. Then, he directly warned Elon that if he continues down this path opposing the Republicans and end up funding the Democrats during the midterms, then the Trump administration will be forced to deploy grave consequences, which may include canceling contracts worth tens of billions of dollars and cutting ties between the US and Elon's many government-funded companies like SpaceX and Tesla.
Scientists from the US have just grown a brain from a test tube, after which they connected it to a computer, and it seems to possess human consciousness. In short, they created it from stem cells, which they later stimulated, and neural tissue was created. This tissue later grew, formed brain structure, and even brain waves similar to those of a premature baby. Later, they connected this brain to a computer and allowed it to interact with a virtual world. And can you imagine? It learned to play a computer game literally from zero, knowing nothing about it. As a result, scientists compared the organic computer with a brain to artificial intelligence and found out that it learns 1,000 times faster than artificial intelligence itself. And yes, I'll say in advance, this brain is alive and it possesses real consciousness. Next, I'll say something that will simply blow your mind. They connected the created brain to a butterfly world simulation on a computer, and later, the brain began to sense and do everything that a real butterfly does. That is, the computer really made the brain believe that it exists in a simulated world and it's a butterfly there. And yes, by the way, in the simulation, the butterfly can exist autonomously without human intervention. It will fly there, pollinate plants, and land on bushes. But you know what's the wildest and most terrifying thing here? It's that the brain doesn't feel itself connected to a computer, it feels itself as a butterfly. And naturally, there are a huge number of ethical questions about this experiment. So what do you think about this experiment? Is it humane at all to conduct such experiments, and where might this lead us? Well, for further development of this experiment, go to my profile and subscribe.
Yeah, we seen a video about that yesterday. In yesterday's video, it was just kind of like, that's crazy. That's literally proof that we might be in a simulation. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's literally like literal proof. It's a little bit scary.
Level 1, Limbo. The first level isn't really considerable hell. It's basically Earth, but you can't die, with the only punishment being the knowledge that the current state they're in will be the same for eternity. Dante himself defined it as the place where instead of screaming, there is sighing. It's where unbaptized babies go, and where righteous people who were born before Christ reside, such as Plato and Socrates. Some people actually went from the limbo level to heaven when Jesus died on the cross, since he came down to the limbo and brought them with him. However, they're mostly Old Testament figures like Adam, Abel, Noah, Moses, etc. Julius Caesar is also in the limbo, since Dante was a big fan of ancient Rome, even though he couldn't put him into heaven because he was born before Christ. Minos. Before the first actual level of hell, there is Minos, which is a figure from ancient Greek mythology that judges where people need to go in the underworld based on their actions. Whenever someone comes into contact with him, they can't help but tell the truth. Level 2. Lust. This is where people who've committed sexual sins go, and it's the most used temptation by the devils to bring people into hell. Here we can find great winds, strong like a hurricane, with people who get pushed back and forth constantly without the opportunity of getting some rest. In Dante's Divine Comedy, there is a principle called contrapasso, which means that the punishments of souls need to be done by a process either resembling or contrasting with the sin itself. For this exact reason, people who lived blown about by the passions of love now have to be blown about by actual winds. Some famous figures are found in this layer, such as Dido, Paris, and Cleopatra, who isn't in hell just because she was lustful, but also because she was an enemy of Rome.
Very strange phenomenon today. The sun was visible, but without its usual glare. I couldn't capture it well afterward, but the daylight didn't seem to be coming from the sun itself.
Man, it's like walking on marshmallows. Somebody call NASA. I found heaven with no ID. Somebody called NASA. I found heaven with no ID.
I personally don't know how accurate that is because, like, I know once you get to that height, you can't really breathe. So I think it's like an illusion or some type of editing thing. I don't know.
Look at my gown, I ain't go to class. I'd rather die before I come in.
In 1962, a 5-year-old girl was kidnapped from her home in Colombia. Her kidnappers changed their mind and decided to abandon her in a jungle. As the girl was wandering the jungle, she stopped, terrified, as a pack of wolves were closing in on her. Miraculously, the wolves didn't hurt the girl, but instead adopted her into their pack. Over the next few years, the girl learned how to communicate with the wolves by howling, growling, and gesturing. She was able to survive by mimicking their actions, becoming the world's first furry. She learned how to hunt and forage, and the wolves provided her with food and shelter. Several years later, a few hunters came across a little girl in the middle of the forest interacting with a group of monkeys. They rescued her, but when she re-entered civilization, she had no idea how to speak, and she continued to act like a wolf for several years.
Gangsters would intentionally tie their gun with rubber bands. You see if a gangster was knocked out and loses their grip on the gun. Now, for the gun to fire, the gangster needs to fully squeeze the grip to depress the safety. But when falling down, the gangsters use rubber bands to bypass this safety feature, making the gun to fire even without a firm grip. Soldiers would intentionally leave their weapons in freezing conditions outside of their tent. You see if a cold gun was brought into a warm tent, it would condense moisture. And as soon as the soldier stepped out of the tent with the gun, it would result in a frozen trigger, leading to an instant death in battle.
Authorities have just officially confirmed that on Saturday, Khaby Lame was detained by immigration agents, held and processed at a facility in Vegas, and deported out of the United States. He was given the ability to what's called self-deport and was escorted to the gate where he got on a flight to Canada. But there's a twist. He didn't just flag on the system for no reason. ICE was actually made aware of Khaby through a guy called Bo Loudon. Now, if you haven't heard that name, he is good friends with Barron Trump and played a part in the Trump administration's social media strategy during the election. Now, not only did Bo essentially facilitate Khaby's deportation out of America, but the reason why he did it is where things get crazy. He claims that Khaby's visa to enter and work legally in the United States was revoked 3 years ago. And despite this, he allegedly entered the US 49 times in that period. Bo also claimed that since Khaby technically wasn't on a valid visa that allowed him to legally work, Bo said that he has heard from business partners that Khaby was allegedly signing contracts under different names and allegedly evading US taxes by sending money back to Senegal and Italy, which is where he has legal citizenship. Bo also said that Khaby was contacted by authorities after he entered the country on April the 30th and was instructed to self-deport before June the 1st. Despite this, however, he remained in the country to attend an event on June the 5th in Miami, 4 days past that deadline. And it doesn't seem he had the intention to leave the country after the Miami event either, because the next day on June the 6th, he flew to Vegas where he attended a different event, which is where ultimately he was detained. Now, I have reached out to Khaby to get his side of the story, so I'll make an update if he replies, but I've also put the full interview with Bo on my YouTube if you want to know more.
I know this says she split the money, but she should have split it cash, because I feel like if she gave them the money cash, it wouldn't have been susceptible to as much taxes as if she like transferred it, you know what I'm saying? But that was a crazy story. Rip Tonda.
Thank you all for watching this here.